Hi, this is Kurt Barone, and welcome to another edition of Fire Law Roundup.
So let's start with Miami, and this is more of a discussion point than a legal case, right? It might become a legal case if I had a guess. And by the way, before we say anything here, do not shoot me for my comments. I know what I'm going to react to this. Do not. Well, I shouldn't say do not shoot me. That's a really bad phrase for this one. Do not get mad at me for my comments I'm about to make. So here we have a Miami firefighter. He was terminated because he made comments in a group chat, right? And I think it's just a group chat. It's not about his work, but so he's a firefighter. He makes comments in a group chat about the murder of a Miami-Dade police officer. Now, look, obviously horrible, right? I mean, horrible thing, but we're on the legal side, not on the moral side right now. Mm-hmm. So he's a 9-year veteran of the officer who was killed. I'm sorry, the firefighter who was fired was a 9-year veteran of the fire department. He was fired one day after he posted the following comment. I'm going to read part of it, or I'll read all of it because it matters. Now, before I read it, I will. And here's what I want people to think of. Remember, the first question we're going to ask here, at least I'm going to ask for this under a Pickering test, and that's to determine whether this comment is protected by First Amendment rights. I suggest it is. I can't wait to hear what Kurt says. Don't answer yet. But remember, one of the first tests, or one of the tests we're going to look at is his comment speaking as a employee, and the second part is he speaking as a citizen, and is he speaking on a matter of public concern? So keep those in mind and listen to what he says. And remember, he's a firefighter, right? Not a police officer, but nonetheless, he's a Miami firefighter speaking about a Miami-Dade police officer who's killed. So here's what it is. He posts, "Who cares? Another dead cop, probably against gun control. They didn't give a expletive. When kids were dying in that school shooting, they stood outside. Cops exist." Again, this is what he says, not what I'm saying. "Cops exist for the government to exercise its monopoly on violence. They want the whole world to stop when one of theirs goes down. How many idiots I had to transport with honor guard their dead bodies from coronavirus because they were too stupid to wear masks or get vaccinated. All cops are good for is protecting the rich property owners and the status quo. Everything else is a farce. Expletive, the police."
Could have been written by Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, probably. I mean, look, holy shit, who would say this? Yeah. But the question for this is not yet a formal question, but I'm guessing this guy may, find a lawyer and say First Amendment, First Amendment. So here's my first question. There's a couple of key phrases in here, right? One, was he speaking as a member of the public, or was he speaking as a firefighter? And Kurt, I want to throw this out to you, that specific question, and I want to focus us on a phrase, right? How many idiots I had to transport with honor guard? Let's assume for the moment the honor guard's part of the fire department. Yeah. So, Kurt, what do you think? How is he speaking?
I think it's a stretch. I think to really determine whether or not someone spoke as a private citizen or as a public official, I think you got to look at the nature of their social media presence. Do they have pictures of themselves in uniform? Do they use the fire department's name? Do they have their rank and title and a lot of information in their social media presence?
Does their job include speaking on behalf of the fire department?
Yeah, all of those things. I think those are more important. It reminds me of there was a case out of Columbia, South Carolina, where a captain was on duty the night of the Black Lives Matter protests where they're shutting down the highways. And he said that on my way home, I'm going to run people over. Fine. We know you must have a job, but you didn't say I'm with the Columbia Fire Department. It's not like you identified that. So I think it's a stretch, but if you couple that with some other things that are on his social media platform, and again, I'm not even sure the news that I saw wasn't real specific about what social media platform he was using. But if he was using Facebook or whatever, if he's got a lot of pictures, or Instagram, whatever it is, if he's got a lot of other things going on there, you know, it may be the thing that tips the scale.
But most likely you're saying, just so our viewers understand, he's probably speaking as a private citizen, not as an employee.
Yeah, let me put it this way. I think we got plenty of rope to hang them on other things we don't need to. Remember, there's 3 tests, there's 3 parts here, and one of which is, did you do it as a private citizen? So even if we give him the benefit of the doubt on that one, and even if we give him the benefit of the doubt on the second one, I think he's got some pretty serious issues on the third one.
And explain that. So for the viewers again, so, okay, fine. Maybe he's speaking as a private citizen. I think he is. I agree with you.
Yeah.
He's speaking as on a matter of public concern. And yeah. I kind of do think so, because he's talking about the school shooting, right? Where the cops did wait outside for a while. So he's obviously speaking about that.
One of the hardest things that it is very difficult for all of us is when you disagree with someone to recognize or acknowledge that it is still a matter of public concern. Okay. There's a tendency that if I think in a certain way, then anyone who disagrees with me is expressing a wrong opinion, and therefore they don't have a right to express it. And I think what you have to do is you have to disassociate from what the person is saying and say, is the topic that's being discussed a matter of public concern? And there's a lot in what he said. And I made a joke about Vladimir Putin. It sounds almost like a communist kind of, that the police are for the rich, the police are to oppress people. You know, it's almost like, you know, really, that's what the police are about. I mean, you know, but there's a lot in there. There's a lot in there. But I think my tendency is to give them the benefit of the doubt on the matter of public concern when there's some colorable argument that can be made that there is in fact an argument. And you know, he's making social, he's making racial allegations of oppression, of what the police are about. So you know, separate whether you believe it or not. I think it is a matter of public concern. I disagree with it, that's fine, but I think it is a matter of public concern. So I give him the benefit of the doubt. You know, he did it as a private citizen. It is a matter of public concern. Now it's going to be time to pay the piper when it comes to the Pickering balancing test.
Okay, and go on with that.
All right. Well, the Pickering balancing test is when you have to balance the interests of the employee speaking their mind versus the interests of the employer in having restrictions on that type of speech. And I think there's just so many ways. I mean, he's suggesting to other people that it's okay to kill cops, that it's actually a good thing to kill cops, that it's good to see police officers die, that we shouldn't be recognizing officers who die in the line of duty. So that's sort of number one. He's not saying go kill cops. Okay, I think if he's saying go
that'd
kill
be inciting
cops,
violence, right? Yeah,
very clearly, if he's saying go kill cops, but he's suggesting that it's okay. So that's factor number one. Okay, he's also creating divisiveness between police and fire. And he's suggesting that firefighters, well, maybe a better way to characterize it is you can't square support for law enforcement or lack of support from law enforcement with being a firefighter. Okay, we're both involved in protective service, and this type of rhetoric, political rhetoric, is the type that can cause friction between the two organizations, distrust between the two organizations that have to be able to work together. Okay. And so that would be my concern here, that it creates the kind of divisiveness that can create friction between police and fire, that from a leadership perspective, we can't have that kind of friction. And if it was a police officer saying the same thing about firefighters, I'd feel the same way, that we can't have that kind of friction between police and fire.
So I got to tell you, and I want to then focus on one more interesting part of this. Now, I personally disagree. One,
Okay,
like
that's cool. That's cool.
the
Yeah.
comment sickens me, right? Like all of us, so it sickens me. But I got to say, I think he's really speaking on what he thinks is the institutional bias. I can't say race because I don't know if it's race, but it's certainly class bias. He perceives that at least there, the police are not treating everyone fairly, which is certainly a matter of public concern. And, look, I don't like the who cares part, who cares another dead cop. But if you took all of that out, right, if you just took those couple lines out, really speaking about a class bias, and bias is a matter of public concern. And I don't know that I think this should not be protected. I think it's disgusting, but who cares? That's not the point of the First Amendment, right? So I don't know. I don't know that I agree, but who knows? But let me ask you this. What about the fact that it's in a group chat? This is not on Facebook. This is a group chat between, I don't know, 2 people, 20 people, who knows, right? But it's a group chat. It's not posted for everybody to see. These are people participating in a conversation. So if I stood in a room with a group of my friends and said this, why shouldn't that be protected? Why should I be fired because I express my view to my friends?
Mhm.
I don't think his termination would stand.
Well, I think the difference is that when you say things in social media, it's not like saying things to your friends, because it can be spread. It's like publishing something in the newspaper or stating something. For example, it's like sending someone a letter. If you say something in person, like if you and I have a personal conversation, unless you're recording it, or I'm recording it, or we've given permission for someone else to record it, there's no record of it, okay? But when I send you a letter, I have no expectation that you're not going to share that letter with someone else. That's not reasonable. If I send you a letter, you have every right, and depending on what's in that letter, you could send the letter to the Rhode Island Supreme Court and have me sanctioned. You could take it to the police, and if there was something that I said in there that was criminal, you could have me charged criminally. So there's not an expectation of privacy that may exist within a conversation that exists when you send someone a letter. And I think when you post something in social media, it's in a similar vein, that you don't have that expectation of privacy when you say something in person.
But in group chats, like text me or chat me, things like that, you have to be invited into the chat to see it.
Yeah.
So would that change your opinion, knowing that these are people they specifically bring into the chat and allow into the chat?
No, it'd be like the same as if you and I had a way of sending each other letters in invisible ink, and only you could see it. But at the end of the day, you can still find a way to show the invisible ink to someone else. I put it in writing. That's the most important thing, that I chose to put it in writing. I chose that method of communication. I could have whispered it in your ear so no one would have heard it. I chose to put it in writing. And you don't know where, once you do that, you don't know where it's going to go. I can say, well, I thought Brad would keep it to himself, but and I think that's one of the dilemmas that we have with the technology. He may not have expected it to go beyond where it went.
And it did. Somebody showed it to somebody, right? There's no question.
Yeah, but I think it raises an interesting thing. What if you and I, let's say you taught at a college in Syracuse, I teach at Providence College, and the same exact words were said in a classroom.
But as an opinion or as part of
the
lesson?
We're having a class discussion.
Why would it be different?
I see a little difference there, because here's where I see a little difference. It's called academic freedom, where in the environment of a classroom, we should be free to say things and have debates and have discussions without having to worry about the consequences of it. Short of threatening, you don't want to threaten the professor. Definitely don't threaten the professor. That's not good for either of us. So, but the point being that I think that academic freedom in the confines of education would make for a healthy debate. Like, what if he was on a debate team and he made the same statements as part of a debate? Not that he necessarily believed it, but that his responsibility was to make the argument.
Look, I just read it back. Right? What if somebody clips me reading it back and sends it out? Which is why I was very nervous about actually reading it. But as lawyers, we know you need to see the whole facts, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
What was the comment before it? What was discussion before it? Not right. So we saw he responded to something that prompted him to say, "Who cares?" Right? Maybe they were having a whole discussion about something else, and somebody said, "Oh, well, what about the cop who just got shot?" And he's like, who cares? There are bigger things going on, right? Now, not that I would ever say that, or agree with it, but there's more to it. I don't know. I think it should be protected, First Amendment speech. It sickens me, but as Alan Dershowitz says, the question of how much you believe in the Constitution, right, is how much will you tolerate of those things that will sicken you?
Well, I mean, if he was my neighbor, I wouldn't take any repercussions against him. But when you work for me, if my paralegal said that, and half of my clients were police officers, and he's going to alienate half of my clients, I can't have you alienating my clients. If my brother's a police officer, my son's a police officer, okay? You can't come to Christmas. I mean, it's just going to create too much friction. And I think that's the problem when you make those kinds of statements. And
that's the question, though. Do you always wear the hat of being a firefighter, right? Do you always wear this hat? Am I ever Brad Pinsky without the chief thing, right? Or do you sometimes
you're going for a fit
for
test, Pinsky? Let's see. You better get the Vaseline out.
So do you always wear that hat? Are you look in a business? You always represent the business.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you always do. So does a firefighter always represent the fire department, even off duty?
Yeah, fair comment. But on the other hand, we go back to the Locurdo versus Giuliani case, and where the FDNY firefighters and NYPD police officer put the racist float in the parade. Even if you don't associate this with your fire department or with your employer, and even if it is a matter of public concern, there's a limit when you cause actual harm or disruption to the mission and function of your employer. You lose the First Amendment right that you might otherwise have. So that's what I mean. My neighbor, fine. My neighbor wants to say that. Somebody else in public wants to say that. That's their right. And I don't think any of us should limit their ability to say that. But there's consequences if you work for me and you're going to alienate my clients, or you're going to alienate my family or others that we're going to have to work with on a daily basis. I can't have you in my employ. I think that's where I'm at.
It will be very interesting. By the way, just for me, if the person who said this is watching, do not call me to represent you. I disagree vehemently with what you said, and I would never say it. So you may or may not have the right to say it, honestly, but not in my world.
The whole class, what kills me about folks that say, and I've got some relatives that might be prone to say something similar, by the way, but I know it, and not so much on the police thing, but more on the class, but does a firefighter who's making $100,000 a year, 80, 90, whatever, 100 grand a year, realize that to a large majority of people that they are the wealthy, that they are part of the wealthy, and he's probably thinking here, say, oh, I'm talking about somebody who makes $10 million a year. No, to many people, you are the wealthy,
right?
And the police are protecting you. It's amazing. They just parrot what they hear wherever on TV or social media, and never really say, well, wait a minute. I could be talking about myself here. The police.
Man, if that guy died in line of duty in a fire, what is somebody going to say? Who cares? Another dead fireman. All you do is protect the rich. Come on.